Hello, and thank you for watching the very first episode of The Vegan Beat, where we're bringing you everything you need to know about being vegan. I'm Justin Cornell, and today we're here in Sandy's Healing Kitchen with Sandy Spallino, plant-based cooking instructor, vegan advocate, and educator. Hi, Sandy.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be a part of The Vegan Beat.
Thank you for being on the show. Thank you for welcoming us into your house. And could you please give us a little background about what led you up to where you are right now?
Sure. Well, I was sort of forced into this 13 years ago when I was diagnosed with breast cancer at 39 years old. Had no family history and thought I ate pretty well, exercised, was thin. So anyways, I went through all the traditional things that was in my lymph nodes. So I had to have surgeries and do chemotherapy and radiation and hormone therapy after that, and wanted to make sure I lived a ripe old age, so started doing my investigation, and that led me to being vegan.
And you read the China study
Absolutely.
And How Not to Die, and you got a certification at Cornell, right?
I got a certificate in plant-based nutrition through Cornell, attended lectures, read every book I can get on the subject, and I thought that the science was overwhelming that a plant-based diet would help me beat the cancer and live as long of a life as I could.
You have that information, and now you're also going out and you're sharing that, right?
Absolutely.
And you're going to country clubs and working with the homeless.
Well, what I found was that I learned so much information by doing this, and my cooking skills in vegan cooking started getting so good, and I had friends and family that were asking me what I was doing. Friends who were diagnosed with breast cancer or maybe had heart attacks or got diabetes was asking me how they can do that to heal themselves. So I knew that there was an audience out there, and I started to spread the word, and I started to do demonstrations, not only cooking demonstrations, but just lectures on health and wellness to all sorts of people, to homeless people. I do it to country clubs. We do wine and cooking dinners. I do it to people in my neighborhood. So my audience is pretty vast, but there's a lot of interest I find out there right now, especially as we get older and in our 50s, and lots of friends are coming down with these diseases and wanting to know if they can reverse it with diet, and absolutely they can.
Mm-hmm. And how do you go about doing that, drawing in a community? Because plant-based community is such a small percentage of the general population, only about 1% in the United States. So how do you work that out?
That's a great question. I find that doing this is much easier if you have the support from family and friends. And there's lots of ways to do that. When you're invited to people's homes for dinner, bring a vegan dish. They get very curious. It tastes really good. It's always much more colorful than anything else on the table. Entertain at your own home, invite friends over, and make only vegan food. You don't even have to tell them it's going to be a vegan dinner party. And then something else that I've done in the past is I've done vegan potlucks, where I'll invite couples or just girlfriends over and have everybody bring a vegan dish. Or I even have a vegan book club. So we take a different vegan cookbook every month, and every month it's at someone else's house, and everybody has to bring one dish out of that cookbook. So at the end of the year, we've gone through 12 vegan cookbooks. We've tried hundreds of new dishes, and everybody gets so excited about how tasty it tastes. They start introducing it to their own families, and before you know it, you've got dozens of friends who are doing the same thing as you're doing, or at least dabbling into it enough to give you some support so you don't feel like you're the only one out there doing it.
Socializing and hosting people and going out to other parties, that's inspired you to create some of your own recipes too, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Once you start doing this, you want to put your own spin on the food. So I find I have much more fun when I take an existing recipe and make it my own, and then I can share it with friends and people at my cooking classes. So it really takes it to another level. It's my passion. I mean, I'm happiest when I'm in the kitchen creating. That's not everybody, so I'd say for most people, just grab an easy cookbook and start cooking out of it. It's really not hard to do to cook these dishes. They're very forgiving.
So if you're going out to a party, say you're going out to a party this Friday, what would be your go-to recipe that you want to take over there?
Well, it depends if they're vegan eaters or if they're more meat eaters. If they're people who are traditionally meat eaters, I might bring them something like what we're going to create today, which would be the vegan crab cakes, something that they're very familiar with. So why don't we go have some fun and get in the kitchen and start cooking?
All right, everyone likes to eat. Let's do it.
So let's talk about these crab cakes. As I said, we're going to be using hearts of palm. Red bell pepper, we're going to saute those up with some green onions using the ends and the white part, and some chopped celery. We're going to add some panko breadcrumbs, some mayonnaise, some parsley. We're going to give it a little bit of a seafood flavor by using seaweed, and we'll talk about that later. But let's start already with the vegetables and get those cooking. First step is we heat the pan up. It's been heating up for about 10 minutes, so I think it's ready to go.
Great.
And we're going to add just a little bit of olive oil. I'm probably just putting about a teaspoon in there, about as little as we can get away with. And we're going to add some chopped fresh bell peppers, some chopped celery that I've already pre-chopped, and some green onions. And I like to use both the white and the green part of the green onion. It's almost going to be like an herb in there. Give it some color and some crunch. Now we're only going to cook that for 3 to 4 minutes because you want it to get a little bit soft, but you want it to still have a little bite so it gives the crab cake some texture. While you're cooking that and stirring it around, again, we're going to leave that for 2 or 3 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and process in my food processor the hearts of palm. And I'm just going to pulse 2 or 3 times just to give it that flakiness and appearance that crab would have. And see?
Yeah, it really does look like crab meat. Is that something you could use in like a ceviche or some other
Absolutely.
seafood?
Absolutely. This is popular in vegan ceviche recipes as well. So that's going to cook for about 1 more minute. Then we're going to add that in with the hearts of palm. In the meantime, let's add in a little bit of the parsley. So this is a 1/4 cup of chopped fresh parsley. Okay. Going to stir that in. I've got 2 tablespoons of vegan mayonnaise here. I'm going to mix that with Old Bay seasoning. Now you can use any seafood seasoning you want. This is pretty traditional for regular crab cakes, and it will give it that nice traditional flavoring. And I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of Dijon mustard. Sometimes easier if you mix these up together before you add it to the hearts of palm so it gets fully incorporated. How are those vegetables looking? I think they're just about done. So why don't we turn the heat off, and then we're going to stir them in. So Justin, while you're putting that in, let's talk about something that's going to give this a special seafood flavor. We're going to use roasted seaweed. Now you can find this nowadays at almost any market, and it's just going to give it a little bit of a flavor from the ocean. So you can just crumble it with your hands and get it into pretty small pieces. And now we're going to add panko breadcrumbs. This is going to be used also as a binder. And then last but not least, we're going to add the mayonnaise that's been mixed with the Old Bay seasoning and a little bit of the Dijon mustard. So what we're going to do is we're going to form these into about 6 small crab cakes. We're going to put them in the refrigerator for about a half an hour to firm up because they're quite delicate, and I'm trying to use as little fillers, little breadcrumbs and mayonnaise as possible. So by putting them in the refrigerator, they firm up nicely, and then we're going to roll them in a little extra panko breadcrumbs before we fry them for our final product. So I've just got a sheet pan here.
Okay.
We both washed our hands right before the show. So let's go ahead and I'll start the first one and then you can follow me. Just put a little bit in your hand and got to work it a little bit to press it into a small crab cake. Just make sure, you can see they're very delicate, and that's why we're going to want to put them in the refrigerator to firm up. So get those kind of compacted and put them down. And we're going to do this. Hopefully we'll get about 6 or 7 out of this.
Okay, so we have our 6 crab cakes.
Let's put them in the refrigerator, and then after we do that, we'll put together the remoulade sauce and bring them out and fry them up.
All right, let's do it.
So we're going to make a remoulade sauce. It's just going to give them a little something special on top, a little je ne sais quoi. And it's basically a mayonnaise-based sauce. And we're going to spice it up with some pickled relish, Dijon mustard. I've got some prepared horseradish, which is spicy, and some hot sauce.
Ooh, I like spicy.
You like spicy. Have you had prepared horseradish? It is not just for prime rib.
Sure, let's see what that's about. That's hot.
It's hot, isn't it?
That's really hot.
It makes me sneeze whenever I try it. But it's good. And now you can add as much or as little as you want, depending on how much of a kick you want. I like it to have a little kick. And same goes with the sriracha. So why don't you put in the relish and the mustard. I'll get the horseradish in. We're gonna stir that up.
That's a lot.
And then taste it, and you could add more if you want it even spicier. And this sriracha is gonna give it a nice red color. Now sometimes I make it and I end up adding a little bit more hot sauce because I'm kind of in that mood. I think that's pretty good.
I think just the way it is right now will
Yeah.
work. Okay, so now we have the crab cakes. They're firm, they're ready to panko.
Absolutely, we've got them out of the refrigerator. We've washed our hands. I've got a hot pan. My cast iron skillet is hot and ready to go. So I'm just gonna take these crab cakes. I'm gonna roll them in those panko breadcrumbs and put them in the skillet. We're gonna brown them about 6 minutes per side. And let's hope that they don't fall apart as we're doing this. So you wanna just pick them up. You wanna be very gentle with them. And we're gonna gently put them in the breadcrumbs with clean hands, of course. Meantime, why don't you put that olive oil in the pan, get that sizzling. And once that's ready to go, about 30 seconds, I'm gonna put this in. So you just wanna gently coat each crab cake on both sides in the breadcrumbs. We'll give it a nice crispy finish. Now I only put in 1 tablespoon of olive oil in the pan. So I think I mentioned before that I like to limit the amount of oil I have in my diet. Oil is not a health food. As a matter of fact, it's not really good for our bodies. Even olive oil is not very good for us. So I really measure my oil. I don't just usually pour it in, and that was pre-measured. It's 1 tablespoon of olive oil for all 6 crab cakes.
Okay.
I'll add another tablespoon after I flip it over. So it's gonna end up being about 1 teaspoon per crab cake, which I think is tolerable. I think that's a small enough amount to where it's I'm okay with it. Okay, so why don't you gently put these in? Oops.
Fall apart a little bit there.
So we're just going to put them really careful in there one at a time while I finish rolling these. And the idea is to not touch it once you put them in there. You don't want to move them around too much. Try to be patient, fry on their own until they get brown.
Okay. I can already smell them. They're great.
Yep, they look like crab cakes. These are ready to go, so let's plate them. I like to put a little garnish on the plate, little lemon slices and some parsley just to make it look pretty and add some color. I like to also find a pretty plate to put it on. So I think about 2 crab cakes per person is nice, and put a little bit of the sauce on top. And let me see what you think.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. What do you think? That was good.
It's delicious. It's hot. It's crunchy on the outside. It has just all the flavors that we put into the sauce.
Yeah, the sauce gives it that nice kick. It's got the seasoning and the flavor of a regular crab cake. You almost can't tell the difference.
Yeah, hold that thought.
And it was quick. It was quick to make. Bon appetit.
Bon appetit with the vegan beet. So good. These are so delicious, and I can't wait for you to try them at home. We're gonna put a link right here or in the description. Make sure you find it. Try it yourself. I guarantee you're gonna like it. And when you do, leave a comment, send us in a picture, let us know how it went for you. Thanks, see you next time.